What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the SkillCapped mid-patch tier list, where we update you on exactly how the meta is shaping out. Irelia is back in a great spot, while Tahm Kench top lane is one of the new emerging picks midway through the patch. Thanks to the help of our challenger players and analyzing the most recent data, we've compiled our tier list so you can get a perfect read on what's best for 11.14. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description for a special discount. Alright, let's get started. So the Irelia mini rework has turned her into a much stronger pick, especially for the lower ranks. This is what we expected, as Riot buffed her scaling and nerfed early game strength, which always tends to translate better for low elo. Irelia is definitely a stronger pick for the higher elos as well, but even more insane for Diamond and below. Buffed up W is so much stronger now and gives Irelia a lot more durability in teamfights. You can dive in, assassinate the enemy carries, and then use W to soak damage and stall for your team to follow up. Extra damage on W is a really nice perk too. All things considered, we will be pushing Irelia up one more tier, going from A into S for 11.14. It's that time of the year again where Tahm Kench top lane pops out of nowhere to get his licks in and dominate the meta. Tahm passive now scales with bonus health, so you get way more value out of it as a top laner. Support Tahm just doesn't have the gold income to purchase a ton of bonus health, so that change is a bit odd if Riot wanted to keep him as a support. The heal addition on Tahm Q allows for his sustain to be quite good early in lane. Q now also applies Tahm's passive damage, so his bully strength becomes super good. The buffs to ultimate are solid as well, but not as impactful as Q and passive changes for top lane Tahm. New Tahm W is a really great gank assist tool, as it provides you with a nice amount of range. This way, you don't have to give away the gank at all when your jungler's coming in. On top of all this, Anathema's Chains is super nuts on Tahm and makes his 1v1 top tier. Tahm will likely remain one of the most underrated top lane picks for 11.14, as he'll be moving all the way up into an S tier slot. For a quick update on top lane Nocturne, he's in a much weaker state for 11.14. We knew the passive nerf would stunt his power level, but Riot ended up nerfing Stridebreaker as well, which wasn't originally on the PBE. All things considered, top lane Nocturne is falling from OP down into B tier for mid-patch. Darius is finally in a relatively balanced state for the first time in Season 11 after his buffs this patch. Stridebreaker nerfs don't really matter because there's actually a new build going around. Trinity Force is seeing so much more play on Darius and is outperforming Stridebreaker at the moment, so look to give it a shot if you haven't already. Darius will continue to retain his spot in A tier throughout 11.14. Alright, the complete top lane tier list sees Sett and Wukong as the best carry picks of the patch. Illaoi is in a much stronger state now after her base movement speed buff and is a highly underrated S tier pick. After just a few patches of sitting in a mediocre state, Garen is back in 11.14 as a strong S tier pick. Garen saw a buff to his Q and ultimate, while the new Mortal Reminder build is giving him some extra power as well. On top of this, Deadman's Plate was buffed, so when you add it all up, there have been numerous changes shifting in Garen's favor. If you haven't already, be sure to try out a Stridebreaker Rush into Mortal Reminder 2nd and Deadman's Plate 3rd. Due to their changes, Irelia and Garen are now joining Yorick as the best picks to climb low elo the fastest. Highest priority bans for top lane are Sett, Irelia, and Malphite. Moving on to jungle, we continue to see Nocturne rise above all else and dominate the meta. Direct nerfs don't affect him in the jungle, so he was hit drastically less than lane Nocturne. Of course, the Stridebreaker nerfs have brought him back down to earth a little, which was really the least Riot could have done considering how disgustingly busted Noc was in 11.13. Even with the Stride nerfs, Nocturne retains his spot in OP tier as the must-pick-or-ban champion of the patch. Coming off her massive changes, Lilia is in a semi-playable state now. All in all, the buffs did exactly what they were intended to do, as Lilia is now a much stronger pick in the lower ranks, while she continues to struggle in high elo. We stated in our pre-patch tier list that any changes targeted towards reducing utility while increasing damage is a buff for solo queue, but more often than not, a nerf to pro play. We'll continue to hold Lilia in a B tier slot as she's definitely stronger than before, but is still a ways away from being a highly contested pick. As Shaco and Xin Zhao were hit with nerfs in 11.14, their power levels haven't dropped enough to warrant a move out of S tier. However, other junglers are beginning to see more success. A jungler like Zac, who we've rated very highly as of recent, is a heavy sleeper pick in 11.14, while Rammus is another who's flying under the radar as a result of his 11.12 buffs. If you can pilot Graves, he's worthwhile to add back to your champion pool now after his multiple base AD buffs. We've got him labeled as a strong A-tier pick. Warwick, Rammus, and Fiddlesticks are who our analysts rate as the best low elo junglers. Best jungle bans for this patch include Nocturne, Viego, and Xin Zhao. Not only have the Aurelia changes influenced her power level as a top laner, but mid lane Aurelia is back in business too. The reintroduction of Magic Resist into Aurelia's W allows her to succeed as a much more reliable blind pick. There are way more AP champions played mid than top, so getting that MR back will help her out in so many games. The fact Wits End Rush is also a viable option into AP mids gives Aurelia more overall strength. Building Wits into Merc Treads and then the addition of MR on Aurelia W turns her into a fighter-tank mix. If the enemy comp locks an AP mid and jungle, then you can get so much value out of Aurelia mid. We'll be moving Aurelia up into A tier as a very respectable mid lane carry. A brief moment of silence for Akali mains as their champion is once again completely dead. Akali is one of those champions who's so difficult to balance around pro play and solo queue that she tends to always end up in a worse solo queue state. Before these nerfs, we had Akali rated as a strong A tier pick, but have subsequently been forced to drop her down. If your goal is to climb ranked, stay away from Akali as she'll be placed in D tier. So let's have a look at our complete mid lane tier list as we continue to rate Sylas and Katarina above all else in the OP tier. LeBlanc and Kassadin are back as great solo queue hard carry options. Buffs to mage items have helped push both champs back up, while Kassadin has the new tank build of Frozen Heart into Riftmaker that offers more blind pickability. The nerfs to Mal's haven't really affected him a whole lot, so he continues to lock down a spot in our S tier as a godlike low elo pick. Joining Mal's will be Garen and Annie as our three best low elo mids. Cat, Sylas, or Kassadin should be on your radar in regards to mid lane ban options for 11.14. Ever since Ziggs direct buffs, and then even more so after the mage item buffs, we've had him rated as a premier bot lane pick. Players are finally starting to realize his true strength in 11.14 as his play rate is shooting up. Base mana nerfs haven't affected his power level in the slightest. Since you run Teleport, Rush Lost Chapter, and can even build Tier, you've got multiple ways of alleviating that nerf. The pushing power, poke, and self-sufficiency of Ziggs are what makes him so oppressive as a bot laner. Shoving and forcing the enemy under tower will net you so much gold from plates and come out of lane with a massive gold lead. Stop sleeping on Ziggs if you haven't added him to your champ pool yet, as he will be placed in our OP tier. There wasn't a single direct change to any traditional AD carry this patch, so our tier list remains consistent. Kog'Maw and Ziggs are the two best hard carry picks of the patch. There are many strong S tier options to choose right now. If you're looking for a good answer to Ziggs, then look the way of Sivir. Sivir's strong wave clear can match Ziggs' shove, while Spell Shield does a great job at shutting down his poke and overall damage output. At level 6, when you pop ultimate and gain all the movement speed, Ziggs has an extremely difficult time landing skill shots. Ziggs, MF, and Sivir are our three low elo recommendations for bot lane, while we have Vayne, Ezreal, and Ziggs as the highest value bans. Taric is in a very underrated state in 11.14 as a result of his buffs, and is even more insane if played into heavy AD compositions. The core build of Locket and Frozen Heart is insanely strong for Taric. All the stats Frozen Heart provides are perfect as he wants the mana to spam his abilities, loves the ability haste, and the armor completely shuts down AD comps. Taric works super well with meta picks, but also does a great job at shutting them down. For example, Nocturne and Xin Zhao are both AD dive champs, so when on the enemy team, your ultimate and stun can negate their engage, while on your team, you throw ultimate onto Nocturne before he dives in, allowing him to wreak havoc on the back line. Taric finds a spot in our A tier, but could very well be moving into S with one more positive change. So, just like ADC, there weren't any meta-breaking changes for support in 11.14, therefore the tier list looks pretty much identical to where we had it pre-patch. Lulu is the lone OP support, while there are a plethora of great S-tier picks to choose from. For all the Tahm Kench support mains out there, your champion is just a better top laner now. We're moving Tahm up one tier from C into B for mid-patch as the buffs have helped him out a good amount, but he's by no means a top-tier carry support. Our three low elo recommendations are once again Brand, Leona, and Zyra. Using your ban on one of Leona, Thresh, or Lulu will be the most optimal. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's kind of like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we are able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week with over 1,600 guides, curated into over 100 courses. No one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into ELO Hell 629 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $4.99 a month if you're serious about improving. Alright, that's going to be all for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you back soon.